go back to crank calling. We'll call somebody to pick up.
Yeah, I'm listening.
That might be the best answer we've ever gotten. Keith, that was pretty good. We haven't had you on the show yet, bud. How you doing?
No, I'm doing good. How you guys doing?
Good. Excellent. I mean, do you want to bash, the old man? You want to go after the guy up in Holyoke? Not Holyoke, up in Holbrook? You can make fun of him if you want.
Jack? Yeah, I was actually with Jack today.
Yeah? How's he doing?
Yeah. Oh, he's large and in charge.
Just the way I remember him.
Did you guys do a little mountain biking?
No, we actually rode.
Did you see the video with Keith and the power lines with the suspension?
I did, yes.
That was pretty cool seeing you going, look like about fourth or fifth gear on that 450, just pounding through those whoops.
Yep.
So. Yeah, you know how those power line tracks are around here. Anyways, it's anytime I brought, I had Tread with me that day, and even Chris Canning, and it takes a few days of riding those tracks to get comfortable on them,
Yeah,
right.
And even Dowdy and Doug would come down and ride and be like all out of sorts. It just, how it is.
Yeah, that's my area. It's the South Plymouth that, in Miles Standish, there's the little tracks I grew up riding. Totally different terrain than other tracks.
Yeah. If you didn't grow up riding those tracks, they're hard to ride. You can't get a rhythm.
Yeah. Speaking of Chris Canning, so who took that video, Keith? Was that you or your dad with Chris trying to jump over the moon?
I didn't take it. No, I was riding. I think Kylie might have taken that video.
Yeah.
Yeah, my daughter.
And what are your thoughts on that? I mean, is that is someone gonna hook that at the National this year or what? What do you think?
Yeah. You know what? People say that stuff all the time. You guys should build a step up or this or that. You know how it is. I mean, by the end of practice, it's so rough that nobody's jumping anything.
Yeah, you can't do it.
But if he goes out there in the first couple of laps of practice and hooks that, he's going to set the precedent. So.
Yeah. No, it was definitely cool. I didn't actually see him do it because we were doing a school that day, and then I don't know where I was, but then I came down and Chris pulled me over and said I jumped it, and I said, "You jumped what?" And I said, "You jumped that?" And he said, "Yeah." And I just, I didn't even think about it again. I was like, well, I'm kind of sick to my stomach. I'm gonna go ride now.
So he didn't tell you he was going to attempt it. You found out after the fact. Nice.
Yeah, no, I never even saw him do it. I just saw the video.
I'm trying to picture your dad's reaction because I'm sure he wasn't that thrilled either.
No, it was kind of. We were there, Dowdy and I were there for a couple of days that week and just pushing dirt. So it was just a perfect scenario. The lip was good. And, if you really look at the video, you could see how he had to sort of kind of square up the turn and really hug that inside and get, all the drive he could get. And when I tell you he landed, if you could see I saw his tire mark, and he made that thing by about 5 inches.
Oh yeah, if that. Yeah, it was impressive.
It was close. Yeah. Definitely. I mean, and the cool part was once he did it and the video came out, everybody and their brother remembers somebody that tried to do it.
It was funny.
This guy did it. This guy did it. This guy did it. And I'm like, nope. The only story I ever heard was I heard Ron Lachine tried it in 1988 maybe in practice, and that's when a few days later Tread came out and he's like, all you guys just calm down. It's total bullshit. Nobody ever did it except for maybe Lachine. And it's like it was crazy.
Speaking of Lachine, we heard a rumor that you might have stolen one of his motors. Is there any truth to that, Keith?
What's that?
Did you maybe have a Ron Lachine motor on one of your old bikes that you shouldn't have had?
Yeah. So just because, from Mike McAndrews, who started Factory Connection.
Yep.
So we were really friendly with Mike, and I was a Team Green rider back in 88, 89, and so that was right around when Mike started Factory Connection. So I always got a lot of hand-me-down stuff from those guys and Kawasaki, just because of Mike being a New England guy, growing up in Vermont, and then my affiliation with Team Green and whatnot. But yeah.
So you might have fallen into a factory motor by accident?
Hey, whatever works. If I'm sure it was a good motor.
Oh, I can imagine. I am sure.
Yeah.
So.
Oh, I was cracking up earlier when everybody was talking about the old 500 days because for whatever reason, I was always, I always loved the 500s, the KX 500s, and the bigger bikes,
You always ripped those bikes too. Those bikes, you rode those bikes so fast.
The guy rode a Cannondale. He can ride anything.
Yeah, but I mean, way before. Like I think I met Keith when it was like 85 in the 125 amateur class or something like that, and when you were lapping me, but I mean, just watching you go and follow your career when you were getting on those KX 500s, it was just like, wow, the bike was made for you.
Yeah, I think I grew up doing, I started with motocross, and then I did a lot of short tracking too, and when I was 11, 12, 13 years old, I was short tracking 125 and 250 short trackers, at 12, 13 years old.
Yep.
So I got used to that power, and then, I kind of stopped short tracking, but then that's when I started riding a lot with JoJo around like 14, 15 years old, and I remember hopping on his CR 500 in like 85 or something, and we had this cool place called Penniman Hill in Hingham, Massachusetts. It was unbelievable, but that's the first thought I have of riding a 500. I remember immediately hopping on, and I must have been like, I was 14 years old at that time.
That's awesome.
Riding a CR 500, and it had I don't know if that was the Boyson Link bike or not, but I remember the just the power of it. I loved it, and from that point on, I was always a big bike guy. I just loved them.
Yeah, I've always been a big bike guy. I don't know why. I always rode bikes that was probably all I could get my hands on when I was a kid.
Yeah. But I mean, I just remember watching, and seeing you ride, and just was like, wow, that really fits. It's like a glove. You looked so much more comfortable on a 500 than pretty much anybody else that I can remember watching race.
Yeah, my first NESC expert win was on a 500.
Nice.
That's awesome.
Yeah, and that's when they switched it. So, remember when it used to be like a 125 and 250 first half, and then like a 250 500 second half or something like that. But then they switched it to like the open, so like the 250, you could ride a 250 or a 500. It didn't matter, right?
Yep.
And I was a Team Green guy, so I got bikes and went to Loretta's on 250s and 500s at like 15 years old. So I think I was, I don't know what year it was, I guess 80,
probably like 86, 87 maybe.
87, yeah. So I was 16, and it was a Middleborough race. I remember I was winning. My dad traveled a lot when I was younger, and I remember winning a moto in 87, yeah, and he wasn't there, and I broke a chain with like 3 laps to go at Middleborough. And I would have won, but I broke a chain, and then the next weekend, but he wasn't there. My dad wasn't there. He was traveling, and then the next weekend, I ended up winning. It was, remember we had the last like 3 Middleboroughs in a row or something, remember how they used to do that?
Yep.
And so I had 1 more to go or a couple more to go or whatever, but that was on a 500.
That was all cool though at the end of the year, seeing everybody, just doing what we could to make our bikes hold together for the last 3 races. And
I know.
When you took the checkered flag
gum,
at that
duct tape, zip ties, you name it.
You took that checkered flag at the last race of the season, and it was just like, oh, I can breathe because I know that I got new bikes coming.
Yeah.
I mean, some of the guys like Dowdy. I remember Dowdy. I think in 89. We were all on the 89 of the old frame, and Dowdy had some of the first perimeter frame 250s and showed up at Middleborough on those things, and it was just like, that's what we're getting now.
Yeah.
But no, that's cool, man. That's definitely cool.
The big bikes are it's making a comeback, I guess, in a sense with the vet stuff, but it'll never be the same, I guess, won't it?
No. I mean, back then, when NESC, when it was true 500s, when it was the 125, 500, one half, you know, it was like a full gate of open bikes. There's nothing that can compare to that sound.
No, well, when the car goes sideways. We had the gate drops last year at the 500 shootout. That was pretty
It was
unique.
cool.
Yeah.
It was cool.
It wasn't a full gate, but
yeah.
it was fun.
But I mean, we would go to places, you know, and even at like anywhere, Middleborough, any of the other tracks too, that the sound, sometimes some of the places the sound just reverberates differently.
Right.
And Southwick back then, when it had the trees behind it, Keith, it was just like the noise just reverberated back through that whole bowl, and it was just amazing to hear 500 just going off that gate.
Yep.
Yeah, it was cool when they did that too, because, you know, they were guys like, you know, that could haul ass on a 125, but put them on a 500 and they were nowhere to be found.
Yep.
And vice versa.
Vice versa too.
Know?
Yeah, you had guys that were too big. That would just, I mean, granted, JoJo kind of dispels the rumor of being too big for a 125, but there were some of the guys that were bigger that couldn't ride a 125.
Yep.
You know, and it was different. It was just a whole different time. And we were laughing today. Vic was going back and forth talking to me about the day that that Rod got his leg stuck in a swing arm on a 500, KTM 500 up at Loudon, and it's just, I mean, stuff like that just. It blows me away to think back and think what it used to be like and how different it's become now. Yeah,
for sure. Yeah, it'll never be the same, but it's, you know, change is inevitable, I suppose, right?
It is. I mean, and let's face it, we're all to that point where, I mean, the young kids coming up now, we just have an open mind, and wherever it goes, it goes. We're not really going to, you know, have much of a choice in it.
No.
But it's still racing motorcycles, and it's what they're used to as this generation compared to what we were used to when we were younger coming through.
Yeah, for sure. Well, hopefully, who knows when we'll get back to racing dirt bikes again, but
yeah, it's crazy.
It sure is crazy. I mean, I'm thinking we're probably at least a couple months away from racing again.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think we're looking at probably June.
Well, you know, we were talking, Art and I were talking about it earlier when I picked it up, and we're thinking, you know, even if they start lifting the restrictions and say you can have, you know, now 10 people in a group, you can have 50 people in a group, you can have 100. I mean, he had a great point. Even 400 people in a group, you still can't hold a race.
Mm-mm.
If you have 250 entries, that's great, but what about all the track workers? What about all the people that come with the racers? You
spectators.
Can't have it.
For every one person that races, usually 3 people in that party.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. We have, you know, phone meetings every couple of weeks now with the promoters group, and so what they've done is, you know, for the national wise is, you know, we're on Schedule B right now. So Schedule A was what everybody assumed what was going to happen at the beginning of the year. Now we're on Schedule B, and they have a C and a D schedule.
Yeah, I heard Loretta's is doing the same thing. Yep.
You know, going to be released, I'm sure. I'm hoping for Schedule D, which kind of moves us later in the year, but we'll see what happens.
Yeah. I mean, it'd be interesting. I mean, the other thing that we could see happen is, should the local racing not pick up for a while, you could see some special, you know, one-off event weekends come up, you know, like you guys with the vet race. If there's no real championship racing and you have permits for a race that weekend, you could always 2-3 weeks out start publicizing it and try to get some higher name guys that there's no championships around anywhere, you know, no series to race. Come ride a special event.
It's possible. There's restrictions alike. I mean, I do feel bad for guys.
It depends on the
all
restrictions.
All these track owners. I mean, Keith, it can't be easy on the wallet. I mean, you guys are losing tens of thousands of dollars here every week now. It's expensive.
Yeah, it's tough, and the thing is, nobody knows, right? I mean, it's just such an unknown. I mean, you can't set a schedule. You can't. No. I mean, it's just such an unknown, right?
It's totally up in the air.
Yep, never seen anything like it. I mean, it's one thing for us to like a nor'easter or a hurricane, or you know, it's a lot more predictable. This, we just don't know when the end is. It's insane.
Yeah.
It's a bummer, but I'll tell you, people won't take it for granted as much anymore, I guess, right? Just going out and be able to hang out with your buddies and riding your dirt bike at a racetrack.
Right.
This is true. True.
Absolutely. And I mean, and who knows? Like you said, who knows what it's going to be like when we get back? But we will be back. I mean, at some point we will be back. So.
Oh yeah, yeah.
You know.
Yeah, it's just gotta run its course, I suppose, and we'll see what happens. But
for now, there's going to be a lot of those guys that are going to try to start getting used to those power line tracks.
Yeah, this is true. Although the EP stepped it up big. I know I have a couple of my customers here that come into EP.
Yep.
And like we know everyone's in the woods, and until the boating starts to open up, that's when they ease up on the woods guys because everyone wants to be on the boats.
Yeah. We just want them to stay away from the backyard motocross tracks.
Exactly. Yes.
Yeah.
So.
Well, Tread and I were laughing the other day because usually, us old guys now we show up at the first race, we haven't ridden at all, and we try to race ourselves into shape. And
yep.
Now, I mean, we're going to show up when racing does start. We're like in the best shapes we've been in the last 10 years.
Like Iron Man.
Yeah.
I parked my bike for about 2 or 3 weeks, and I took it out this afternoon just goofing around behind my house on some whooped out tracks. And I got arm pumped so bad.
Immediately. Yep.
Immediately.
Yep.
Yeah. When we ride, everybody's, we've been riding 3 times a week, but, with Chris and Justin Coquinos and Tread and those guys, and everybody knows that this is not, we're not in a race situation here.
It's different.
It's just 75%.
Yeah, don't get hurt. Yep.
Yeah, just go through the motions.
Yep, we just talked about that right before we called you about just, whatever you do, don't get dinged up because you don't want to wind up in a hospital right now.
Well, same thing goes for the boys that have been mountain biking too, with me and with some of the other guys. I know you guys like to go mountain biking a couple of times a week too.
Yeah.
And it's like you look at things different. Something that you were challenged before, like a big rock drop or something. You're going to look at it and say, you know what, I'm going to hold off, I think, on that until things ease up and I can afford to be, taken to the ER with broken wrists if needed.
Yeah, I am. Well, I tell you what, I got a better chance of wadding myself up on a mountain bike than I do my dirt bike.
I don't know, man. I rode with you on that too, and you did pretty damn good. So you guys definitely kicked my ass. I mean, I got a few pounds, I think, that I'm shedding, but you and Chris and Justin. I mean, Justin. Everywhere you go, Justin's riding a wheelie.
Oh yeah, he's good at that.
I'm struggling getting up a hill, and I look up, and there's Justin riding a wheelie up the hill. Son of a bitch! I wish I could do that.
Very deflating.
Yeah, we were out riding the power line track the other day, and I just had this conversation with Justin. Listen, don't go out there and act like this is the Southwick National. Let's just have some fun, put in your laps, get some sweat going. And there's this one little section where we were kind of jumping off, and we were tripling off this little ledge and jumping over these holes, and Chris started quadding off it, and then it got a little weird, and then I happened to be sitting there and looking at the section, and all of a sudden I see Justin come off the thing completely sideways, hits something funny, cases the quad part of it, and gets laid out like a Superman on his bike and rides another 50 feet and never really fell, but like he saved it.
Yeah.
And it was like extravagant looking, and I like immediately start my bike and ride over there like, oh shit, I hope he's okay. And when I find out he's okay, I said, what did I just tell you?
Enough. Yeah. Right. The dad in you came out, right, Keith? Knock it off. Yeah.
Oh man. Yeah, but you know what? These guys, once it gets in their blood, the competition gets in their blood, and they see one person do it, they got to do it.
The helmet goes on.
It's like, I can do that. Switch. Yep.
Yeah. I guess that's the beauty of old age. When you see people jump like that jump that Chris did at Southwick and that stuff, you don't even think twice about it.
No. I just when we were riding mountain bikes that day, and we came up to that, it was just this big rock descent, and I think Chris looked at it and he's like, "No, I'm not going to do that. No, I'm not going to do that." Next thing you know, he's at the top of the rock, and Keith's sitting next to me, and he's just on his bike going, unbelievable,
shaking his head,
It's like unbelievable. I mean, that was the time he had a broken sternum too.
That's right. That's yes.
Yeah. Well, that's the cool part about being 50, right? You can just say, nope, I'm not going to do it, and then you don't lose sleep over it. When you're 25 and you say, I'm not going to do it, you end up losing sleep over it.
Yeah. I find now at 50 plus, I'm 52, I find I have no problem saying, you know what? I'm actually afraid to do that.
Yeah,
I'm not going to do it. When I was in my 20s, even if I was scared to death, it was like, nope, you kick it up a gear and you pin it and you get over it.
Yeah, especially when your friend does it. Once someone else does it, you feel obligated.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, oh yeah.
You let the lunatic go first, and then you just, match his speed.
Yeah. So we want to be part of the group that are old men that still race, not used to race, right?
Yeah,
that's true.
Well, hey, you guys have dragged me out. It was 16 years since I had been on a gate when I came back out to the vet race at Southwick, so it's I'm fat.
Look what's happened since then.
I know. It's
crazy.
Now I'm going into vintage stuff, so I don't know. That might beat me up more.
Yeah. Speaking of vintage, Keith, so you're gonna restore anything cool like everyone else? I mean, it seems like that's the common thing to do under lockdown is to restore an old bike.
Yeah, I don't know. I ended up buying a couple of years ago, just because everybody else was getting into this 125 thing.
Yeah.
I got this old KX 125, not super old. It was like, I think it's an 02 or something.
It's like a Bubba Stewart.
Yeah, right. Yeah. And I didn't do much to it, just factory connection suspension and, I did nothing to the motor, just, linkage bearings and stuff like that, and went out and rode it. And we were talking about this the other day with Tread, because, Tread's got a bike for every thing imaginable, a 125, a 150, a 320, a 720. Yes.
720.
So, 125s are fun to ride, but they suck to race.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Even when you ride them, though, even when you ride them for a while, you ride them for about 20 minutes, and
Todd
you're like, okay, I'm over
Todd
it.
Rashad would love to argue this.
Well, Todd's a unique person when it comes to riding those 125s. I don't know.
Another big guy in a 125 and just makes it look like fluid.
He's the only guy that I know that really enjoys getting on a line and race. I think because he's fast enough that most of the old guys can't stay with him anyway. So when he beats him on a 125, it just gives him that extra bit of pumped. He's pumped to do it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I suppose it depends on who you're racing with, so.
Right.
Like if I line up in the vet class and I got Dowdy and Tread and these guys and they're on 450 and I'm on a 125, I'm hating life.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I saw Carlo on a 125 that day a couple years ago. You, Dowdy, Carl, and Tread were all on 450s, and you guys were just out front playing around in the 45 class. It was a 45 class. And there's Carlo chasing you guys down, and he was riding the balls out of that 125, and he would get close to you guys, and then you guys would get to another section, just kind of wick it up a little bit and just pull away from him like, sorry, Carlo, I know you worked hard, but see you later.
Yeah, no, they're fun to spin for a few laps for me, but I'm 14.
That reaction was on the money right there.
I always say I'm a 250 guy. The 125s are too small. The 500s are a little bit too big. A 250's just right. I can go out. I can start it, and it's not going to get me in trouble right away.
Yeah. So see, that takes us into the e-bike thing. The e-bike thing is giving us more places to ride. You can go ride Miles Standish and not draw any attention to yourself.
John Levesque's riding an e-bike a lot. He's riding an Alta, goofing around a lot, and he's having a blast on it.
Is he enjoying it? Yeah.
An Alta motorcycle.
Yep. He has one of the ones that still was from the shop, and he loves that bike.
That's cool.
Yeah.
You rode an Alta, right? You rode one.
Yeah, I rode an Alta up at New Hampshire that day when Art was with me that day. Art rode it too. Great motors. They needed some work on the suspension and stuff, but that's easily fixable.
Yeah, it's too bad that didn't. I mean, that will come. That will be like the Cannondale of this era. It will.
Yep, it will
they
be.
were just a little ahead of their time.
Yep. I think you're right. Right.
I mean, and now they got the a lot of the smaller ones, like the Surons, and they got the Segway, which is basically the Sura. KTM's got that free ride, so They're there. They're there. They're just more in that capacity. Like it's a novelty right now. It's not really a something that you would want to get to try to compete on. But that's with that Honda electric bike. It's right there.
And I've been following the Sauron bike, and it's kind of funny. Keith's name was dropped on one of the boards the other day. They were talking about the Cannondale, and they're like, "Who was the guy that made that bike famous?" And I said, "It's Keith Johnson." I was like, "He's local to me," and they gave me the utmost respect, Keith. They said, "Man, that guy was riding a 500-pound pig."
Yeah, the funniest story with that, well, I got a lot of funny stories with that.
Share a couple. Enlighten us.
One of them was the Mount Morris National. So it was a mud race, and that was local for Cannondale. So their factory was an hour down the street from there. So everybody from the factory was there. It was like the debut of the Cannondale, right? Mm-hmm. So if you guys have ever been to Mount Morris, the way the starting line used to be, not the way it is now, but the way it used to be was it was a big, long, like left-hand sweeping
uphill
start. And yeah, so the further you went to the left, the steeper the uphill was. So if you were all the way to the left on the gate, you kind of had a steep hill. But if you were all the way to the right,
yep.
It was much flatter. It was a longer way around, but it was much flatter. So it was, it had rained and it was super sloppy, and, and I had qualified and I went to the gate like 20th or something. And I just remember like walking down the gate. You had to walk past like all the way from the right side of the gate, and everybody just funnels down. Everybody usually just stacks up. Like if you have first gate pick, you would take gate number 1 all the way to the left, and then so on. That's how the gate worked. And I remember seeing the far right gate was like they tilled it, but the furthest gate to the right, like they missed about 6 inches of earth all the way up the thing, all the way up the start, and it was hard packed. And I remember seeing it, and I'm like, I had a split second decision, like, do I end up starting right in the middle, or do I take this gate and just chance it? And I said, you know what, I'm going to chance it. And back in the day, I remember Ricky Johnson telling me, condition over position all the time on a gate, meaning pick a gate with a good condition over the position on the gate. So long story short is I ended up taking the furthest gate to the right-hand side and like just ripping out of the gate and coming out like, I don't know, second or third in the moto. And I don't know. I hung out somewhere in the top 10 for half the moto, and then the bike blew up or something. But they were so thrilled because, everybody was talking about, now I can talk about it, but back then they didn't want me to really, but they were talking about the power of the Cannondale grabbing a top 3 hole shot at a national from the outside.
Yeah.
But it had nothing to do with that. It was just because I was on dry earth 6 inches for 300 feet up the right side of the gate.
Right. So, that's awesome. That's awesome.
Yeah.
I like that though. Condition over position.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Raph Masiello put a funny comment up earlier. He said that his flamed out at Southwick, and he had to push it back to the pits, and he was going by Treadwell and all the usual suspects, and they said, "Boy, you look a lot like Keith pushing that bike."
Yeah. But you know what? They had a good idea. They really did. They just, it's the Yamaha of today is what it is.
Right.
The cylinder turned around backwards, electric start, air filter up top. It's the Yamaha 450 of right now.
Yeah.
They just, just were ahead of it and didn't have the technology to pull it off. Just like Alta,
Yeah. Right.
Alta is somebody will come along and figure it out. You know.
Yep, and they also were using Porsche for the motor on that thing, right? Wasn't it Porsche? Who was making the motor on the Cannondale, Keith? You'll remember that.
No, Cannondale.
Oh, Cannondale's actually making it? Okay.
They made their own. I remember that they made their own motor for that because that was the radical design that they hired engineers to come in and build the backwards motor.
Okay.
That's right.
Yeah. And it's funny now they're collectibles. Guys are going after them. So
Heath Francois.
Heath Francois got one. Yeah,
drove
in
all the way
really
to
good
New Jersey.
shape. Yep, he did. And somebody else has got one too. There's one in the museum. I know that. So you don't still have one, do you, Keith? You got one of those kicking around?
I do. I have the first one ever raced. Yeah.
All right. Now how cool is that? See, now there's a great. That's cool.
That is cool.
Yeah. I have the first Cannondale ever raced. Yeah. No frame numbers or anything. It's loaded with titanium. It started out at like 270 something pounds, and we got it down to a slim 250 or something like that.
Yeah. Now that must be cool. Now, out of everything you've ridden, obviously, I mean, would you say that's still the coolest thing you've ever thrown your leg over, technology-wise? I mean, it's definitely cool.
I don't know about coolest. It was a cool experience.
Yeah.
For sure. I learned a lot, and I've always been a decent test rider, so it was fun to be able to see the progress of it. The frustrating part of it was them not listening to what we were saying. So as a rider, if you say, hey, this is no good, we need to change it, and they say, well, we can't change, perfect example, foot peg height, right? Mm-hmm. So we would go out and ride foot peg height, and I came back and said, hey, we in the R&D department, we raised the foot pegs 10 millimeters, and the handling and the feel and everything is so much better. So we need to raise the foot pegs 10 millimeters. Oh, we can't do that. The brackets, we've already got 15,000 brackets made for the foot pegs, things like that.
So based on what was in stock, they stuck with the bad decision.
Budget over performance.
Right. Yep.
Yeah. But they would, they would do stuff like that, and that was frustrating. But it was definitely a cool project. There's no doubt about that.
Yep. No, it was definitely cool to know a local New England guy was kind of pioneering, that bike back then. I mean, I think all of us, from New England thought it was a pretty proud moment,
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
You know who another guy was on that project was Mike Guerra. You guys know that, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
He was doing some R&D and testing on that, wasn't he?
Yeah. Mike was a huge part of the whole R&D department, and he was more product development. But he wasn't so much in the field with us. But he was the guy I would go to and say, hey, Mike, we went out and rode, and I had these guys raise the foot pegs 15, 10 millimeters, whatever it is. It's so much better, this and that, whatever.
Yep.
And then he would try to get it done, but then he would be the guy coming back to me going, Keith, they've already manufactured, 10,000 brackets for foot pegs that bolt onto the frame at this level,
Yep.
So
I think one of the coolest projects, though, that I think I've seen Keith in was that Mountain Dew commercial.
Yes, the Dew Tour. Yeah. The Dew Tour, that's right. And I went to high school with Brett Meredith, and I can remember Brett coming to high school saying my cousin was in this wicked cool commercial, and we're all like, yeah, sure, yeah, Like, no one believed him, and then we saw the commercial.
Yep. I think Gene was in that with you, wasn't he?
Yeah. Gene was in that, and Jeff Glass.
Yep.
Ryan Huffman, who now owns Washougal.
That's cool.
Yep.
Yeah. Jason McCormick, if you guys remember him.
I remember Jason McCormick.
Yeah, that was cool. It was a fun week of riding, that's for sure.
I can imagine.
Riding Washougal and throwing it sideways through the water, through the waterfall.
All right, so Keith, so if the Cannondale wasn't the best bike I shouldn't say best bike, the most unique is probably a better word for that. So what would be your favorite bike you've ever thrown a leg over? What is your number one?
Kawasaki 450.
Okay, all right, then 2020?
Yeah, I really liked the 09, 10 era in there, but we just recently I've been riding a lot more and testing a lot more with Ziggy, and we just finally came up with some settings that I can't really say too much about yet, but
secret sauce.
Well, we've really changed what this Kawasaki 450 can do. We found out some stuff that is pretty unique that will be available to the public through Factory Connection. But it's unbelievable. Even Chris is like just beside himself on how much better the bike works now.
Interesting. That's cool.
Well, it's funny. It's funny you say that too about the 450, because when we went to the shootout and Ken Kaplan had me ride that 89 KX 500, and I did a couple laps on it when we were done, I got back up to the trailer and your dad goes, "Take the 450 and tell me what you think." And I'm like, "Yeah?" He says, "Take it." So I took it out and rode it, and I brought it back with a big smile on my face. He goes, "What'd you think?" I said, "That is the best motorcycle I've ever ridden in my life."
Yeah.
And I mean, well, and it is. Even though they were 30 years apart, that 2020 KX 450 it's ridiculously good.
You rode the 250 too, right?
I rode the 252, but the 250 is like a 125. I just don't have enough.
Well, plus you're big guys.
I'm big and I'm not on the gas enough to make a 250 go very well. 450, I can be a fat slob on a 450 and have fun.
You can make a mistake on the bike and not pay the penalty.
yeah. The 450, it just gets up and floats over everything. It corners. It's amazing.
Yeah. It's I'm just a 450 guy. Even if 2-stroke over 4-stroke, I'll take 4-stroke every day.
Yeah. I like both, but the 2-stroke is so much work. Much work.
Yeah. That's just me. But I grew up on 2-strokes like we all did.
Yeah. Yeah, but I'm with you. I mean, the 4-strokes have come so far that you push a button, it's hydraulic clutches. They're not hard to work on.
Bike's electric start. Who ever thought? You push a button now.
Dude, it's
crazy.
It's like a dream come true. I mean,
you told me that we were pushing a button and starting dirt bikes.
Anybody who ever sat in the start line, kicking.
Yeah, I had one of those early YZ400s. I know. Yes.
I know.
Oh, yeah, those are a beast to kick.
Oh, especially when they're hot and you lay it down on the track, forget about it. Oh, my God. Yeah. So I told you I almost get rid of mine. I almost scrapped it day one. I'm like, this thing's going back.
Imagine Doug on that first one on the works bike.
Casey Bates, it wasn't for him. I remember he came over and he's like, all right, dude, I'm going to show you how to stop this freaking piece of shit. and he did, too. He showed me how to, it's all technique.
Yeah. I remember riding JoJo's, I think it was 86 YZ490.
With the big air cooled.
Yeah, air hammer.
Yeah.
So.
They were fun, but the ping, ping, ping was definitely a unique sound.
It was.
It sure was, yeah. It sounded like it was going to blow up.
Yep.
Big time. So.
Very cool.
But hey, listen, I got to run, guys.
Awesome.
Well, Keith, we appreciate picking up the phone call tonight. As you know, we randomly call people once in a while, and you were our victim tonight.
Yeah. I happen to be listening the whole time.
Yeah. And so you heard us already mention it. You knew it was incoming.
Yeah. No, it's good. It's anything to do to keep the support going, and hopefully we'll be back at a racetrack sometime soon.
Absolutely.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, as soon as we can start getting people back, and you guys can get riders on the track, we'll definitely be sharing the crap.
Yeah, we'll keep promoting. I mean, we've been trying to keep the show going. We had a little hiatus there 3 weeks, but we're back on track now. So.
Yeah. Sounds good. And as things progress, if you guys want to talk about national stuff or whatever as they progress, and if things change, we'll come back on and just so everybody knows what's going on.
Cool.
Yeah,
well, before we hang up, Keith, anybody you want to thank? Any track sponsors, personal sponsors you want to mention?
Wow. Yeah. I mean, I've always been a loyal guy, and as far as sponsorship goes, and Factory Connection for sure. Those guys. Like I said, I've been with them forever, and even with Mike McAndrews back at the beginning in '89, I think.
Yep.
And there were times I'd have to leave, when I was doing my KTM thing and certain things. But even when we went up to Canada, they had a certain suspension, deal, in our factory Suzuki team up there, and I pushed and said, listen, I'm using Factory Connection, and they were fine, so for sure those guys, and Bob at 60 and Andy at FXR, and all the track sponsors, and Bob Rathkamp at Garnet, those guys have been forever sponsors, right? And
absolutely.
Even though FXR is a little bit newer to the scene, the guy that is, the behind the scenes there, Andy, I've known and been with him forever. in one way or another in Canada. You know, the first Honda team I rode for was with Andy and whatnot. So, you know, you guys know how small the motocross world is.
It is.
Yep, it really is. Yep.
It is.
Yeah.
Everybody knows everybody.
Yep.
Yeah. You gotta treat them right, and it's you know, it's funny because Tread and I talk about this a lot, because I don't think kids understand these days what it means to be sponsored. It's not a one-way street. You know,
Right.
people don't give you stuff just because, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
They give you stuff because you win races and because you can support their company, and the idea is that,
Represent them well. Yep.
yeah, you know, the idea is that Pilgrim Power Sports is going to give you some bikes, but you're going to send them some people to buy bikes. That's the idea.
Right.
Yep.
Right.
Yep.
And with every sponsor. So it's important that people realize that, because one hand washes the other for sure.
Yep.
Yep. Absolutely.
Right?
Dead on.
Yep.
Yeah. But thanks, guys.
Awesome, man.
All right, Keith. Listen,
Have a great
night, and I'm sure we'll see you hopefully sooner versus later.
Yeah, sounds good.
All right, man.
All right, man.
Have a good night.
All right.
All right. See
Thanks,
you,
Take
buddy.
care.